I made a little bit of a sarcastic joke. A man named Dana White, who you love, who I love. I assume you love him.
Love that dude.
I think he's in a class by him.
He's probably the reason why you're here.
I don't know, maybe.
He's one of the big ones.
He is the greatest guy.
I love him
I
to
always
death.
say, nobody's indispensable. Everybody can be replaced. Maybe you can't be. You might not be. But Dana White, truly, I don't think, the things he sold it for $4 billion. I said, what the hell? Who the hell is going to pay $4 billion? And they made like a great deal. I mean,
it's
because
worth a lot
of
more
him.
than that now.
Take him out. I think it's a whole different.
No,
ballgame,
he's the best
and he's
promoter
also
of
the
all time.
greatest guy. He spoke at the whole thing with I had just been shot, and he got up and he spoke so better than anybody. I mean, who would be better to introduce you? I asked of all the people, and I know the biggest people in the world, and they all would have loved to have done it. I said, Dana, would you do it? It was interesting. He was away. And he said to the people that, one of my guys called, said, I won't be able to do it. I just left with my wife and family. I won't. I said, he said, no, yeah. I was a little surprised, even though I knew he was very far away. He was in some place, and he deserved it with his family, the whole thing. And then I said, all right, and so we're looking who we're going to get. And all of a sudden she comes in, Sir Dana White just said he's going to do it, and he's coming back in tonight. He's taking it. The guy is just an incredible guy, and he's like a tough champion, but loyal. Yeah, he's got to be one of your favorite people. He's one of my favorite
I love him
people.
to death. I've been friends with him for 23 years. I love him to
So
death.
would you have, because what you're doing here is incredible. I mean, everybody tells me. All I know is today I'm going, you're on Joe Rogan today. People are telling me, like I say, how the hell do you know that? But it's sort of, what you've done here is amazing. Where would you be if you didn't do the UFC stuff? Would you have this show, do you think?
Yeah, I would still be doing it for sure. Yeah.
Would it be at the same? Would it be at the same level?
I don't know.
But you would have.
It's hard to know. I think one of the things that works for this show, I guess, is that I'm involved in so many different things. Stand-up comedy, UFC, and all the interests that I have that lead to the podcast.
Will you always want to do First of all, you love UFC.
I love it. Yeah.
You love the fights. I mean, I watch
yeah.
you. You are loving it. They could pay you nothing. You'd be very.
They didn't pay me anything for the first 13 shows. I did it for free because they were hemorrhaging money. And I became friends with Dana, and my position was, you're going to give me the best seat in the house. I get to sit cage side for the fights. I'll do it, and I wanted to help. I was like, I think these are the guys that we had always hoped for. In the early days of the sport, I started working for the company in 1997. I was before the UFC was purchased by Zuffa, which Dana worked for.
Wow.
So I was a part of the previous owners. And I only did it for a couple of years. It was just too much, and I was losing money. And it was banned from cable because of Budweiser and John McCain, and you could only get it on DirecTV. And then
I came along, and I gave him the sites.
Did, and he loves
you
for that.
And he never forgot it.
He loves you for that. He talks about it all the time.
Just to interrupt you for one second. So they couldn't get a site because it was too dangerous, and everybody was against it, and they couldn't get licensed. And I gave him the first 2 or 3 sites.
Yep.
And they were great. And by the way, I went to the first fight. I said, I never saw anything like this. It was crazy. It was so good. Take the best fight you've ever seen. It was like that fight, right? It was so good that I gave it to him again, and all of a sudden it caught on. But when I wasn't in vogue, I've had time. You probably never had a time, but I had times when I wasn't exactly in vogue. Dana, they called him. He said, he's the greatest guy. There's nobody like him. He said, I'll never say anything bad about that guy because when I needed, because they were having a hard time at the beginning. They almost pulled the plug a couple of times, right? He said he stood up and he gave us stuff that nobody else gave us and nobody wanted anything to do. And he said, I will never. And there was a time where it would have been very popular for him to say bad stuff about me. He said the greatest stuff about me. He said, you're going to try and get me to say bad stuff about Trump? I'm never doing it.
No,
so
he's a very
unusual
loyal guy.
Yeah,
very unusual guy.
He's a fantastic guy.
A perfect guy to be at the helm of something so controversial as the UFC.
Less controversial now.
Well, now it's huge. Yeah. Well, this was always the thing that I would hope that it would be. I always knew that it was unbelievably entertaining, but I just didn't know if maybe I was crazy. Maybe I loved it because I've had this long history of being involved in martial arts, and maybe like other people who just think it's too violent. But
can boxing make it?
Yeah, boxing's still a great sport. I love boxing.
But it seems to be so unimportant now by comparison to UFC, don't you think?
I think, Dana is working with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They're going
About
to
bringing
start
some
promoting
fights, yeah.
boxing now. And with Dana at the helm of it, I think boxing could return because the thing is they want to make fights that other people, maybe, promoters don't want to make because they want to protect their fighter. Controversial fights where, it's dangerous. Like, you don't know, this guy could lose. And so the Saudis, they're smart. They just offer a tremendous amount of money, and they're putting together fights that no one else can put together. They're doing that in boxing.
If Dana's involved, he'll probably make it good.
He'll
The
make it
amazing thing, though, in fighting, no UFC fighter, they say, has ever died. And it looks
No.
to me much more violent than boxing. Many boxers have died. Isn't it interesting? And Dana tells me because they take so many shots to the face.
Yes, and there's also no other options to preserve yourself, to protect yourself. So if you get hit in a UFC fight, you can clinch. You can try to take the fight to the ground. You get
Yes,
options.
yeah.
Also, you don't get allowed to get knocked down and then get back up. When you get knocked down, you're concussed. And generally, if a guy's really hurt, they could be finished on the ground and the fight's over. If it's boxing, you have 10 seconds to get up. You get up. Your head kind of clears, but you're still in real bad trouble, and then you can kind of run away and survive until the bell rings.
Yeah.
They're only 3-minute rounds, and then you start again. So you're getting repeated punishment to the head.
Yeah.
And then there's also the issue of guys weight cutting, which is a problem with the UFC as well. But weight cutting in boxing has led to, if you look at deaths in boxing, there's very few of them in the heavyweight division. Most of the deaths in boxing are the lighter weight divisions because when guys dehydrate themselves to lose weight, to make weight, their brain is the last thing that gets rehydrated. Like, it's very difficult to completely hydrate your brain quickly. And you only have 24 hours between the weigh-in and the fight. And it used to be the weigh-ins were the day of the fight. Like when Boom Boom Mancini had a fight with Duk Kim and killed him in the ring, which is one of the last ones on television that we've seen.
That's right.
That was a crazy event for people and heartbreaking, and it led to a bunch of different changes. And one of them is day before weigh-ins to allow people to rehydrate better, and the other one is they dropped it from 15 rounds down to 12.
Which, look, they should do that. I'm not the fighter, but those 15-round fights were unbelievable.
They were unbelievable.
They were unbelievable.
Yeah, you go back to the golden age.
Yeah, in terms of entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
Those were the championship rounds. Those were the greatest fights
Those
ever.
last 3 rounds were crazy.
That was brutal.
I mean, it's such a war of attrition. A lot of people think even like a 5-round UFC fight. The UFC is 5-minute rounds. It's so much energy you're burning out. And those last couple of rounds, those 5-round fights, the 4th and the 5th round, unbelievably brutal.